Well, it's great seeing everybody in person. Most of you, obviously this joke is used quite a bit, but all of you are little tiny squares on screens most of the time, but it's great being out. If you're not from around Raleigh, or if you're not, if you're traveling, I'm really proud to call Raleigh our home, Element's home and my home for about 4 years now. If you don't know, Raleigh and kind of the Triangle area here in North Carolina is, a huge ecosystem for higher education. You have community colleges, you have all kinds of colleges and universities, and it couldn't be a better place for a company like Element 451 to call home. So I really appreciate everybody coming out here today. We have a great agenda for today. This is our first inaugural Engage Summit. It is something that we're very passionate about on how we're personalizing our communications with our students, how we're connecting with our students, and how we're doing marketing overall in higher education. So we've put together a great lineup for you. We're going to start today, and I'm going to have Brendan kind of do the introductions, but we're going to start today with an amazing workshop from our friends at Enrollify. Linnell from SEMA will be continuing and kind of doing a presentation afterwards, showing some of her success that they've had with some of the enrollment. We will then have lunch, and after lunch we'll have our keynote speaker. So our keynote speaker, Wanda, she's the chief strategist at VaynerMedia. For those of you who don't know who VaynerMedia is, they're a global digital agency. Gary Vaynerchuk is the founder. And they do a lot of digital, and they work with really large brands. So we'll kind of talk a lot about how that translates into the mindset of our Gen Z and kind of the students that we're trying to recruit, and of course, kind of the interactions and everything else that's going on right now. After that, we have, well, I have to look at the agenda. It's pretty packed. So after that, of course, I'm going after. So I'm going after her. I don't know if I can follow, but we're going to talk a lot about Element, kind of our roadmap, kind of what's coming, what's there right now. We have a lot of exciting news around the platform. For those of you who already use it, there's going to be a lot of new components and announcements in there. For those of you who don't use it, you get a peek on some of the things that we're working on. After that. We are going to take a short break, and then we're going to split up the room into two. We have 2 tracks, and we're going to then start our online streaming version as well. So we're going to have a product track on one of the sides, and then we're going to have an industry track on the other side. So for the afternoon, the industry track, we're going to have JC Bonilla. JC is a board member. He was the chief analytics officer here at Element. He now leads the analytics and data at VaynerMedia as well, the global team there. So he's going to be presenting on how brands how global brands do analytics as well. At the same time, we have Chris and Matt talking a lot about essentially our packs and kind of how we made it a lot easier to automate a lot of the things that we're talking about, a lot of the campaigns. So that's on the product track. So if you don't know anything about packs, you don't know anything about, or if you're really interested in some of the new things that we're adding and some of the new innovative stuff that we're doing there, you can attend that one. After that, on the industry track, we have our friends from Covideo and talk about Covideo, and also in partnership with the folks at Fisher College, talk about video and how personalized video is actually one of the great ways of engaging. During that time on the, let's see over here, during that time on the product track, we're going to talk a lot about we're going to talk about data capture and kind of the ability to kind of engage with those students, and that's going to be on the product track, right? So we have Keith and Megan talk a lot about it. I don't want to kind of spoil a lot of the things that you guys are going to be talking about, but please come and attend those. And a lot of the sessions today, we've tried to make them as both informative, but also you're going to walk out of here saying, okay, I learned something new today. So it's not about us talking about our product. It's not necessarily about us pitching a certain perspective or view. It's all about how can we better engage with our students? How can we do marketing better? How can we communicate better? How can we engage better with our students? So with that being said, I'm going to hand it over to Brendan. Brendan is actually going to do a lot of the introductions. He's going to MC. So, and I'm going to hand it over to him so he can introduce our first guest.
Thank you. All right. Well, I know what you're all thinking. I don't know if anyone else saw this announcement, but The Rock is emceeing Shark Week. So I'm really sorry that you got stuck with me instead of The Rock, but happy to be here with you. So funny story first before I introduce Zach. Up the days leading here, I was looking at Zach and his last name. I was like, man, how do I pronounce this guy's last name? And so I was worried about it. And the running joke was, well, it looks like Booze Cruz. And so I was like, oh, okay, Booze Cruz. That's weird. I'm not going to say that. I'm going to ask him whenever I see him. So I see him this morning. I'm like, hey, nice to meet you. My name's Brene. So I was like, got to know. I'm introducing you. So how do you pronounce your last name? He was like, it's Boozy Cruz. So I kid you not, is awesome joke, awesome last name. I wish it was my last name, but all joking aside, Zach Boozy Cruz, he is the founder and brand strategist at Enrollify. That's a resource hub, a digital resource hub designed to empower the modern enrollment marketer. He also leads product development, sales, and partnerships at Direct Development, which is a family of 4 brands, including DD Agency, Enrollify, Novus, DD Studio, and that's all serving education and nonprofit sectors. So he wears a lot of hats. He does a lot of things. So crazy to think that he has time to come here and speak with us today. But give a round of applause and welcome Zach Boozy Cruz here with us today.
Thank you, Brendan, and thank you everyone for the warm welcome. I feel honored because normally I'm the guy that gets the Saturday morning slot after the conference at 9 a.m. that no one shows up to because everyone's hungover from the night before. So getting to kick off a presentation is a real privilege. So I want to just share a quick little bit about who I am, and then we'll dive into the meat of our discussion today. A lot of times when you go to these conferences and presenter gets up, they say, hey, I really want you to walk away with 1 or 2 gold nuggets that you can take back to your team, right? I'm up here for a long time, so I hope it's at least 5 gold nuggets or 5 very tangible things that you can take away back to your respective teams. Because again, we're going to be together for about an hour and 45 minutes. It's a long time. I promise you it'll be as dynamic as I can make it. We're also going to have time we have games, so we're going to be playing games in every section today, so get excited. I know that some people don't like games, so if you're one of those people, I'm sorry, but we're going to make this as fun as we possibly can. Yeah, I'm having trouble turning it on. Yep. But yeah, and I also just want to thank the Element team for this event. This is awesome. I've never been to an Engage Summit, so I'm excited to be here with you all, and really privileged that they thought of me. So we're going to talk about a lot, right? This is one of the things that you should know about me, if you don't know about me already, is I really love long titles. I'm a verbose person, right? It's very, very difficult for me to shorten my titles. I'm very expressive. But here's a little bit about me. As Brendan and Artis mentioned, I'm the founder here at Enrollify. I've been a higher education consultant for about 10 years. So I did start pretty young. But I've learned a ton about how to help colleges and universities of all shapes and sizes market their respective programs. Done a lot of work, especially in the graduate space. And understand sort of the nuances that exist in grad. So spent the past 10 years working with, again, a number of schools that you all would recognize. I'm also an expert Airbnb deal finder. So I have a little side hustle called Spontaneous, and I curate the best last minute deals and upcoming steals on Airbnb every week. So if you're in the market, go ahead, shameless plug of my side hustle here. I like to think I'm a decent podcast host. I host 6 podcasts. So if I'm not decent, I hope somebody will tell me at some point soon so I can find another way to use my time. So I host a lot of podcasts. I'm an average cook, according to my wife. I think I'm a little bit above average, to be honest, but she thinks I'm average. I'm an aspiring mixologist. So when you're at a party or a cocktail party or an event and somebody says something like, all right, if you could do something entirely different with your career, with your life, like what would you want to do? I genuinely would love to be a mixologist. I'd love to be a bartender. If Enrollify just totally fails, like that's where you'll find me. And then I'm a shitty manager. And I was trying to find something like that was lighthearted enough, but also relevant enough, and something I could pick on myself for. I am not good at managing like my work. I'm not really that great at managing people. Like I love people. Like I love working with people. But I'm an intrinsically motivated individual that I find it hard when people just don't do things the way that I do them, or get things like I get them. And then when it comes to work, just ask Michelle. Michelle was trying to get me to send this presentation weeks ago, and I told her, I was like, Michelle, I'm just gonna be, honest with you here. Like, you're not gonna get it till the night before, just because that's how I work. Like, I've learned this about myself, right? So, shitty manager of work and people. But a little bit about Enrollify. So, if you're not familiar with Enrollify is a free resource hub where higher ed comes to learn new marketing skills, discover new products and services, and find their next job. So we've got a whole robust platform of free content. As I mentioned, we have a lot of podcasts. We have a whole podcast network. We've got e-courses, we've got video courses, we've got master courses, lots of really, really great content there. We also have a review site called Chatter. So if you all are Element customers and you haven't already submitted a review for Element on Chatter, you should. Chatter is a one-stop shop for higher ed to come find new software and services. And then we've got a jobs board. And one of the things that was really, that was really important to us as we put together this jobs board is we wanted to have a jobs board where every job had a posted salary or salary range. So every job that you'll find on Enrollify Jobs has a posted salary or salary range. So it's not the most comprehensive jobs board out there because of that, because a lot of schools don't show that kind of stuff, but every job that you'll find here has that. Ultimately, what we're trying to do with Enrollify is we want to be y'all's best friend. Like, as long as you are in higher education, we want you to think about Enrollify has my best interest at heart, right? These are my people. These are like where my people live online. That's what we're aspiring towards. I don't think we're there yet, but that's where we're growing. All right, a little bit about our agenda for our time together. So we're going to learn new things. Again, I want at least 5 tangible things that every single person can walk away with from our time together. We are going to do some work. So I don't know if you noticed this in the agenda, but this is called a workshop, right? And like I'm one of those people I'm like, oh, okay, so it's not a presentation, it's a workshop. Okay, cool. So it has to be interactive, it has to be dynamic. You've got to do some work. So we are going to do some work, but of course we're going to have some fun, right? So that's a key objective. If you don't have fun, see me later. I'll give you like a gift card or something in exchange for the time that you spent with me. A little bit more practically speaking, we have a 3-session workshop, okay? So three different parts. They all kind of make up the whole, but they can also be thought about as independent. Each session is broken up into a few core parts. Every session is going to be different, right? So don't feel like after session 1, we're going to just mirror that exact format going into sessions 2 and 3. And then you will get access to the slide deck. Like the question I get in every presentation is like, will we get access to the slides? Yes, you will get access to the slides. The team at Element will send these to you. So you don't have to worry about taking a lot of notes because you can go refer to all this stuff, back to this stuff later. All right. In terms of our time together, the first workshop is really on Gen Z attention, right? Where is Gen Z spending time? What holds their attention? And why do you care? Like, why should you care? Right, and my goal with this session in particular is to kind of, there will be stats, and there will be the Gen Z spends this amount of time on TikTok. There'll be a couple of those, but I try to steer clear from a lot of those because you guys know that stuff, or you can very quickly find that stuff with a quick Google search. So I tried to make it a little bit more interesting in terms of the trends that I'm noticing and that we're seeing. Then we're going to be talking about how to become a kick-ass email marketer. So this is a little bit more specific for those who are working or have any influence over your communication flows, right? So if you are post-inquiry, post-app, whatever it is, if you are in charge at all with writing emails for prospective students, You're really going to get a lot of value out of this workshop. And then last but certainly not least, how to increase yield rates with the power of video. So cool to hear that there are some video people in the house. Didn't realize that. That's amazing. So hopefully this will be a nice tee up for y'all's presentation later. All right, first and foremost, how to harness Gen Z's attention. Practical guide to the future of search and social in higher ed. So a lot of people like to talk about Steve Jobs as, one of the best creators, one of the best, best entrepreneurs, one of the the best designers of our generation. As I was preparing for this presentation, my brother, I happened to be at my parents, and my 19-year-old brother came in. He's like, "Oh, what are you doing?" And he looked over my my laptop, and he saw this photo. He's like, "Oh, is that Steve Jobs?" And I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "Yeah, dude, he's one of the you know who he is, right? Founder of Apple." Yeah, and he's like, "Yeah, he's the OG Elon." And I was like, "What?" Okay, it's regardless of what you think about Elon Musk, according to my 19-year-old brother, Steve Jobs was the OG Elon Musk. And I think that was his way of just saying, this is a great entrepreneur, a great creator, somebody who really thought differently. And while Steve Jobs certainly was, and all of those things, the thing that I admire most about him is really sort of the way that he thought about consumer psychology. He understood consumer psychology, I think, better than anybody else. And there's this story that gets talked about in books that you can read about him, and or even you could find this just by Googling online, where when he was designing the iPod, he would go to parks, he'd go to public areas, right? And he'd go and he'd sit on these benches, and he would he'd approach a woman and say, "Hey, can I look in your purse?" And she'd be like, "What?" And and he's like, No, can I look at your purse?" And he would do this, and he would take vigorous notes. And at one point, he brought somebody on the Apple team with him, and they're like, "What are you doing?" And what he was trying to do is he was trying to get a sense of what is in a woman's purse, right? How big is a woman's purse? What is the minimum weight and size of an iPod that would fit neatly into a woman's purse? So before, he wasn't asking them, "Hey, where do you get your music? Are you tired of carrying around a CD player or an MP3 player?" He was asking them, can I see what's in your purse, right? And one of the most famous Steve Jobs sort of touted quotes here is, you can't just ask customers what they want and then try to give them that, right? By the time you get it built, they'll want something new. And so again, he's credited in the industry as one of the just most prolific, most progressive thinkers with respect to consumer psychology. He knew what we all wanted before we knew what we wanted. So at Enrollify, one of the things that we love to do is talk to students, right? So we like going on what we call road shows. And a road show is we'll go to college or universities, we'll go to a major metropolitan area, and we will do canvassing. We'll walk around with signs. And Element sponsored our very first road show in New England last year. And we'll walk around with signs, and we'll say, "Hey, we want to talk to you about higher education, and for 2 minutes of your time, we'll give you a $5 Starbucks gift card." So we want to reward students and prospective students for their time, right? It's very important to us. And so we went around and we're canvassing, and really the goal here, what we're trying to unpack is, you can send a survey out to prospective students, you can send surveys to your existing students, right? And survey design is an art form that it takes a lot of time, there's a lot of, it can get pretty political, a lot of people weigh into survey questions, and is this question framed appropriately, et cetera. And all that is great, right? And really, really important data. And if you're not surveying your students or not surveying prospective students, you should be. But what we were interested in is okay, what are when you give people sort of an open canvas and you just ask them a broad question "Hey, Jessica, talk to us about higher education. How do you feel about your college experience so far? And or what are you thinking about as you discern if, when, and where to go to school?" The answers that you get, if they spend a couple minutes with you, you learn a lot, right? You unpack a lot of insight that is harder to unpack or at least see at face value within the context of a survey. So we've spent the last several months going around to different colleges and universities, different cities, from San Francisco to San Diego to all over New England to New York, right? Gathering these insights, trying to understand what Gen Z in particular thinks about higher education. Now again, these are conversations with people that are already in college, and people that are not in college yet but considering it, and people that are fresh out of college, right? So that's sort of the range that we're talking about here. So here are some hottish takes on higher ed from Gen Z that, again, are beyond some of the more well-known statistics. These are direct quotes from students that we talked to. You can learn from anywhere at any time, but collaborating on Zoom sucks. Now, I guess it's also important to note, right, our first roadshow was right after people were finally back in school, right? Like New England last fall, right? A lot of schools were still remote for long periods of time, right? So we were talking to people fresh out of COVID, with quotations around that. Number two, if it's not aesthetically pleasing, I won't pay attention to it, right? One of the super interesting insights here, I was talking to a student and they were like, you know what I just don't get, Zach? And I was like, what don't you get? They're like we grew up on Instagram. Like, we grew up seeing beautiful things. When we see something that's not beautiful, we just don't like it. It doesn't matter what it says. If it's not appealing to look at, I don't give it a second look, like full stop, right? If I can't find what I'm looking for in 5 seconds, I'm out, right? A quick story here too. So my same brother who had the comment about Steve Jobs being the OG Elon, he's very entrepreneurial, and he was like, saying that he wanted to start like a t-shirt company. So this was over Christmas break, and I was like, all right, Nick, like, I'll work on this with you. Like, let's go do this. And so he starts Googling things, and he's Googling like how to find like a nice quality but still like affordable t-shirt. He can't afford like custom ink. It's too expensive for him. So we're trying to find like a custom ink but like cheaper, but that still has good quality. So he's Googling, best t-shirt companies, for whatever. And he goes and he like clicks on the first 3 searches, right? He gets brought to a landing page or their website. The very first thing that he does is he goes to the top right corner, and if he doesn't see a search bar, he hits back. Like, I watched him do this, and I said, wait, what was wrong with that website? He's like, oh, dude, they don't have a search bar. And I was like, yeah, but like this could be, they have a navigation, right? Just go under t-shirts, right? Like, white, but for him, it was like his mind was moving so quickly that he realized if I can't search to find what I need on the site, I'm not gonna find it easily, so I'm gonna find somebody that serves it up quicker. Another quote. This one's one of my personal favorites. My mom makes me look through the mail every Saturday. If it looks like someone designed it in Canva, I throw it away. My mom got upset because I accidentally threw away a brochure from BU, which is where she wants me to go, right? Like, these are very, very, very honest reflections from folks that we're talking to here, right? If your website looks like it was built 10 years ago, how am I supposed to trust that your programming is actually relevant? Like, when you read these things, you're like, well, yeah, good point, right? And yet, like, many of us have websites that look like they were designed 10 years ago. My friend is taking a gap year to focus on building her TikTok following. She makes more per month than my brother, who has a graduate degree. I just don't understand why I can learn more about tax strategies for my side hustle from YouTube than in my tax and accounting course. I'm paying $2,700 for this course. YouTube is free. These are smart kids. I think the core curriculum needs to be totally changed. It should be illegal to declare a major in your freshman year. Personal finance should be a required course for every freshman in America. I DM'd a school on Insta asking for program information. I was told to email somebody from admissions. I did, and then they sent me to a faculty member. It took over a week to get my question answered. The system is broken. She actually said the system is broken, and I loved it. So these are very, very honest reflections that, like, again, you're not going to necessarily find this in a quantitative survey with 25 questions where you're interviewing prospective students, right? Because it'd be hard to, design a question that would tee up an answer like that, right? But in casual conversation, when you're really saying, hey, I want to listen to you, like, I really want to understand this, and when you're paying somebody, right, again, you're incentivizing them with that $5 gift card, they're going to give you a little bit more, right, than they might if it was just like, hey, can I talk to you for 2 minutes, but I'm not going to give you anything. So these were the insights, some of the insights that we that we uncovered during this period of time. Now, if you want more of this stuff, we actually did some really cool podcast series with our friends at Glacier called Signals, and with the folks over at Zemi called Collective Enrollment, where we summarize a lot of this stuff and where you actually get to hear from Gen Z actual students, prospective college students, and students that are now in college. So if you want more of like these hot takes and you want to hear it directly from the mouths of students, you can go look up these podcast series and get more where that came from. So if I could kind of just summarize these hot takes from Gen Z, I'd start by saying higher ed programming needs a shakeup, right? We need to think differently about higher ed programming. Now, a lot of us in this room probably don't have a ton of influence over that, and I get that. And you probably agree here, right? So, but for what it's worth, it's still true. Gen Z wants new programming. 2, marketing and recruitment strategies need to be refreshed to capture and keep attention. And I say and keep because I think we all have a good understanding. Well, maybe we don't. I find when I talk to folks, more often than not, folks understand the importance of trying to capture attention, right? But then we very quickly think that we very quickly lose sight of what it takes to keep attention, right? So we're going to talk about that in a little bit more detail today. And then number 3, information architecture needs to be optimized for search, right? And what I mean by that is people should be able to find anything that they want to be able to find on your website or on your owned properties via a search bar. And if they can't, that's problematic. So talk is cheap, right? And in addition to what Gen Z said, we were curious about how they search, right? To bring Steve Jobs back up here, right? We wanted to know what they might want that they weren't asking for just yet. So we had some fun, and we spent a lot of time in Google Trends. So how many of you have used Google Trends before? All right, good. More of you than I was expecting. Great. So good. So Google Trends is just a nice free resource from Google where you can get interesting insight into how people are searching broadly speaking, right? You can drill down into like specific search terms. You can look at terms in the aggregate. Like if you just want a better sense of holistically what is the rough search volume and trend around a particular topic, you can find that for free using Google Trends. So what I want you to know over this next few slides is we were looking at sort of like general search terms that we'd think prospective students, Gen Z, aged, might be searching on Google. Now if you look at this trend data, let me see if I can, there we go, perfect. So if you look at this trend data, right, what you'll see here for should I go to med school, it's pretty consistent, right? The trend is pretty consistent. There are ebbs and there are flows, there are ups and downs. You know, it's not dramatic. It doesn't dramatically spike in any particular year. And again, sorry, this is search data over the last 5 years. We're looking at search data over the last 5 years. Should I go to law school? You know, same thing. It's dipping recently, right? You can see this here. It's spiked a little bit here, but look, it like hasn't gone over 75 in terms of popularity in years. Interesting, right? Should I go to business school? This one's been, again, also pretty consistent, right? Like the trends are relatively stable over a 5-year period of time. Now, when we started looking at terms like how to be an entrepreneur, right? This is the 5-year aggregate search term data on this particular term. You start seeing a curve that looks a little bit more what? Exponential in nature, right? Like it's going up. The trend is increasing. Same thing goes for how to be a creator, right? Look at these trend lines. It's increasing over a 5-year period of time. How to be an engineer. How to be an influencer. Look at this. I mean, it's peaking. It's just about over 100 right now. And look. In the last 5 years, it started at what, like 20, 22, 23. I'm sorry, that's a little difficult to see. It's now peaking over 100. How to work at a Starbucks. How to work at a startup. I'm looking at my Starbucks, right? So any, like, if you just kind of step away, right, and you think about this as a marketer, right? You think about this as somebody who is a critical thinker with respect to the future of higher ed. You might notice that there's some interesting things going on here. The search intent, right? The search data for traditional kind of careers and pathways is kind of staying the same, but search data for these new things are increasing exponentially. Here's a couple of specific keyword searches. Does anyone use like Ahrefs or SEMrush or like Moz SEO for keyword search? Raise your hand. Couple of you guys. Okay. If you aren't doing this already and you want a better understanding, first and foremost, of like how your website ranks for specific keywords, there are a number of free tools out there. There are also a number of paid tools out there. This is SEMrush, and one of the things that we were interested in looking at is like, okay, what is the specific volume around something like majors for entrepreneurs? So this was actually back in 2019. The volume was around 880. That jumps to 1.3K, right, just a couple years later. So again, roughly what, 60% increase in people searching for that particular term. Same thing for best place to study entrepreneurship. The volume, right, and this is representative, is around 40 monthly searches, and that jumps to 90 a couple years later. So more than doubling. And really sort of like the point being here that the searches that people are conducting around, let's just say, alternative careers and or pathways that are a little bit more entrepreneurial focused, it's just increasing. You can't argue against that. So in late 2019, this actually, a poll like this was actually just redone, like literally a week ago, and the data is consistent, but I didn't have time to pull it in. So, but in late 2019, Lego and the Harris poll, they teamed up, and they interviewed 12 to 17-year-olds to ask them what they wanted to be when they grew up. You guys have probably seen this. It's been trending recently on social. And 75% of them said that they wanted to be YouTubers, right? 75% of kids are saying, students are saying, I want to be a YouTuber when I grow up. If higher ed's not thinking about that, and you know, I don't know, maybe some of you guys have programming on how to be a YouTuber, right? I've never seen that on a college or university website, but like this is what the market, these are what consumers are actually saying that they want, let alone saying, you know, let alone the things that they're not saying, but that they actually want. They then asked kids to rank their dream careers from most interested in to least interested in. And here's how that shook out, okay? So YouTuber, blogger, musician, singer, actor, filmmaker, doctor, nurse, TV presenter, athlete, teacher, writer, lawyer, okay? Now, granted, some of these kids are still a little younger, right? Maybe they're a little naive, and take that into account, but these trends have held true even 3 years later as they've interviewed this same population who are now, you know, 15 to 20, right? So the trend appears to be true. Now, I went ahead and just circled, you know, like 50% of these, you could argue that musician, singer, and actor should fall into this category too, but like 50% of these careers that students are saying that they desire, right, are content focused, right? They're what I would argue creator focused in some capacity. They're not conventional career paths. So this is really a long way of saying that there is a huge, huge opportunity for higher ed to create programming for creators and solopreneurs or entrepreneurs, right? And I find it, quite frankly, shocking that there aren't more examples. There aren't any examples that quickly come to mind. I'm sure there's one or two. But there aren't examples that come to mind for all of us in this room of folks who are doing just this, right? Now, one of the biggest threats to higher ed right now, right, depending on your oversight and your programs and your majors, you may or may not be experiencing this, but the boot camps, right? Like especially if you have a technical program or a couple of technical programs that you oversee, boot camps are posing a real threat, right? These coding boot camps, right? And other technical boot camps. Well, one of the things I was talking to somebody on a podcast recently, I was saying, you know, if I was a prospective student, if I was Gen Z, and I was like, you know, 17, 18 years old, and I was like, I don't know, mom and dad, like, I don't know that I want to go to like a 4-year college, right? Like what I really want to do is I want to go work for Google, or I want to build the next Google or whatever. Or I just want to be a developer, whatever it is. I was like, I'm not convinced that higher ed is going to be able to teach me that. If my parents sat me down and they said, okay, Zach, great. And I was like, I want to go to Austin Coding Academy, or right, I want to go to Lambda School, which is now, I think, the Bloom Institute. And I want to go do a certificate or boot camp instead. If my parents were to sit me down and say, hey, Zach, we get that 4-year college might not be for you, right? But what we really want is we want you to go to the University of Texas, and we want you to take this program. It's pretty much the same as Austin Coding Academy. We want you to take this at a institution that has been around for a long time, right? The brand of that institution supersedes any startup that has recently come out over the past 2 years offering some credential or some boot camp. So higher ed has this like incredible opportunity, right? Because people think of higher education and they think learning, right? Like they think outcome, or at least they should. And And if higher education could find a way to offer some of this programming, similar programming, their brand alone, I would argue, would supersede some of these pop-ups, some of these startups that have come into the game in recent years. And you do see some more of this coming now with micro-credentials popping up and all this other stuff. But in general, I still think that there's a long way to come with finding ways to program intentionally and specifically for this audience. I want to talk a little bit about how social and search are changing. So the last 5 years, social media has gone through a major transformation, okay? And search has all but replaced the need for content to be organized hierarchically. So great example here. We have some more senior team members on our team. Not that senior, but like people that are older than me. And there's this constant debate in the shared drive, right, around like how content should be organized, right? Like some people they have spent, their life figuring out the perfect hierarchy of like foldering and like AA 1 2 3 4 set. You need a master's degree to interpret how they've set up the drive, right? And then there are other people like me that I like, half my docs are like cloned copy of blah, right? Like, and it's highly, highly, highly disorganized. Again, remember, I'm a shitty manager, I'm a shitty organizer, right? And I really bother some of these other members on my team, and rightly so. And like I've tried, and like I'm always working to like do a little bit better. But the point is that I know how to find what I'm looking for via search. I know the right keywords to throw into Google Drive to find what I'm looking for. And guess what? If I'm like that, my brother, Nick, oh my gosh, like he's like that to the nth degree. So point being that the way that we think about search has dramatically changed even over the last few years. So talking about social. So old social, right? Social used to be a place where you come to share information and content with friends, right? Hence social media, right? When Facebook was first started, right? Well, early on in Facebook's years, like it was friend finder essentially. Like the goal was to connect with other people that were actually in a similar geographic area as you were. New social, right, is really an environment to teach, to learn, and create with strangers, right? Like think about, you guys have heard people talk about wanting to be an influencer. You probably follow people on Instagram or TikTok, right, who fall into this category. Like you've learned probably a lot from somebody that you've never met who's also not a professor in higher education, or your parents for that matter, right? And there's this notion, especially among Gen Z, that hey, like we can create, these platforms have enabled us to share knowledge, and some of that knowledge is, worth being skeptical about, but regardless, right, Gen Z can share and create and promote their ideas to strangers. And that's what many of them desire to do and want to do. This is an interesting survey that Data Reportal did. This was 5 years ago. And they asked folks how they're using social media. Like, what are your top uses of social media? Folks, the number one thing, right, staying in touch with family and friends. Number 2, filling spare time. And number 3, reading news stories, okay? How that has changed in the last 5 years, Sprout Social just did another survey with Gen Z. This was a year ago. 68% of Gen Z say their primary use of social is to learn, right? To learn about new brands, trends, etc. 61% of Gen Z consumers want companies to know them better based on their social media activity. So there's a lot of buzz out there around privacy right now. And I think that there are definitely demographics that are aware of like how everyone has our data and China has everything and yada, 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 right? But when it comes to Gen Z, like the majority of them are less concerned about that, right? They just kind of expect that. So use that, use that information how you will. But 30% of Gen Z says their primary use of social media is to connect with family and friends. So that drops, right? The primary use, this was all social users. The Sprout Social survey is just Gen Z. Staying in touch with family and friends was 47.6%, right? Just about 48%. Now only 30% of Gen Z says that their primary use of social is to connect with family and friends. Right? Again, we're seeing this like fundamental shift in how people are viewing the purpose of social media. Now let's talk about search, right? Old search is long tail, highly specific search queries, right? And Google only. How many of you remember like when Google or even search engine before Google? Somebody help me. What's like what? Yahoo. Yes. Yeah. Yahoo. All right. The OG. No, the OG was yes. About.com. There you go. Anyways, what you used to have to do on search engines, like, do you guys remember doing like the tricks where you do like the and like the plus, and like you were trying to get the search engine to like pull up what you were actually looking for? It was complicated. Like the people that figured it out were like they felt good about themselves. Like, let me show you. Like, I know how to find this faster than you, right? Watch this trick, and it was great. And that's how search used to work, right? And I guess old search, I should really be a little bit more specific here. I'm talking about like the last 5 years, right? So not that old. And it's primarily been Google only. Like, Google dominates the search market. Like 96% of searches happen on Google. New search, right? This is intentionally very long, guys. New search, whatever words come to mind to describe that thing that you're looking for, even though it's not a complete sentence, and yet search engines are smart enough to get you to where you need to be, right? Like, think about all the things you clamor about in a search box now, and Google will, 9 times out of 10 be able to find what you're actually looking for, even if you didn't use any of the right descriptors, like, for the thing, right? It's amazing. Like, search has come a really, really long way. And now, like, search is not just Google. This article literally published 3 or 4 days. Oh, shoot. Sorry, that's the next slide. So 70% of Gen Z say that they will leave a site if they can't find what they're looking for in under 8 seconds, right? So my brother said 5 seconds, right? Gen Z holistically says 8 seconds. So if they can't find what they need in 8 seconds, they're bouncing. 65%, actually, quick poll. How do you think you all compare with that? Like, if you hit a website, right? 8 seconds is a long time. 1, 2, 3, 4, like, how many of you, just quick show of hands, will give a website more than 8 seconds to deliver what you're looking for? Yay, raise your hands. Okay. 15% of you, roughly. All right. So, this isn't just a Gen Z trend per se. This is just a consumer trend, right? We've been trained, and unfortunately, there are a lot of ways to find what you're looking for in under 8 seconds, right? And so that is the expectation. 65% of Gen Z says they use a website's search tool before a website's navigation. This is from McKinsey, right? So 65% of Gen Z are like my brother Nick, and they're looking for the search tool. And that's the first thing that they go to. Like, they don't want to, and this holds true with the foldering example I was talking about. I don't understand how my boss decided to set up the folder hierarchy. Like, he's not God. Like, why is that the rule? Like, And I think Gen Z too. Again, the way that they think and the way that they search, they're so used to information being delivered very fast, that's highly relevant, etc. So if they can't find what they're looking for in under 8 seconds via search bar, they're going to leave. They don't want to follow your prescribed path because Dr. So-and-so said that academics needed to live under this subnav, right, and not this other subnav. They don't care about your politics, right? They want to find what they're looking for. 70% of Gen Z expects websites to know what they are looking for when they come off a Google search, okay? Now, I did a little bit more reading about what exactly this means, and from what I gathered, this is what this means. If I'm Googling a particular, let's use the t-shirt example, right? And I'm looking for, and I use a specific type of t-shirt like Hanes or something, like Hanes white t-shirt, right? I expect whatever site is ranking, when I click on that site, I want to see a Hanes white t-shirt, right? And if I don't, if that keyword is laced into a page, but the page itself isn't really showcasing the t-shirt, I get annoyed and I hit back, right? You probably operate the same way. So in other words, what Gen Z expects is what populated in search, those keywords, that should match very quickly, even above the page fold. So before I have to scroll, I should understand that this page was specifically designed to rank for this particular keyword, right? To solve my problem. All right, this is the article I was referencing. This article came out a few days ago, July 13th, right? So a couple weeks ago. And this is from Google's, if you probably saw this trending. If you didn't, this is from Google's own data, okay? So Google is saying that nearly half of Gen Z is using TikTok and Instagram for search instead of Google, okay? Nearly half are queuing up searches like these: 6 a.m. morning routine, popular songs on TikTok, DIY home improvements, health and wellness tips, right? Stylish outfits, all this stuff. These are some just of the most popular keywords that were trending the day that I took the screenshot. But like, what you'll see here is that there's a whole generation of people that are looking for the same kind of information that you're looking for, or that I'm looking for, or like our colleagues are looking for. But the way that they're conducting that search is on a fundamentally different platform, right? And a fundamentally visual platform. And we'll unpack that in a second here. Here are some of the super interesting things that Gen Z is learning. How many of you have seen, well, I don't want to steal, I'm going to wait to actually ask that question for session number 3, but salary transparency on TikTok. Has anyone seen this? Raise your hand. Okay, great. More than I expected. Wonderful. So for those of you who don't know what this is, there's these TikTokers that they'll go around to a geo-specific area, right? Like in this case, Alexandria, Virginia, Washington, D.C., like all in the greater D.C. metro area, per this example. And what they'll do is they'll walk up to strangers on the street and they'll say, hey, what do you do? Okay, you're a product marketer at this company. Great, how much do you make, right? And the whole point, what they're trying to do is they're trying to help people learn, okay, this is Brendan's a product marketer in Raleigh, North Carolina, and he makes X. If I'm a product marketer in Raleigh, North Carolina, and I make Y, and there's a significant gap there, either positive or negative, that's interesting data, right? So these TikTokers are helping, again, Gen Z and other people that watch this content, get a better sense of their value, right? This data can be really difficult to find. There's obviously places like Glassdoor and whatnot that unveil some of this, but getting this at the regional level, right, and understanding like context around what these people actually do, the size of the company they work for, I mean, it's amazing, right? You learn so much in 10, 15 seconds. Another example of this is like job interviews, right, and like how to find your career. If you ever just want to understand what your prospects are looking at, right, and engaging with respect to jobs, right, with respect to career pathways, go to TikTok and look at some of this stuff. It's fascinating, and like some of it's crap for sure. A lot of it's really good. A lot of it's really interesting. A lot of it's really, really compelling. I think one of the reasons why we're seeing these incredible trends with respect to search on TikTok and Instagram, especially with this generation, perhaps overtaking Google eventually, is that the best content delivers the greatest amount of value in the shortest amount of time, right? So think about this, right? If I can learn something via a 10 to 15 second TikTok about something that would take me a minute on a blog post to read, and the content is engaging and there's a person and they're talking fast and there's cool music, if I can learn the same material in a fraction of the time, wouldn't I spend a fraction amount of the time learning that material, right? And so I think TikTok in particular as a platform, same thing goes with like Instagram Reels and whatnot. The way that it's designed is it's designed in a way to give a lot of value in a very short period of time and do it in a very engaging format. So as we think about the future of social, as we think about attention and where attention goes, right? These are kind of like Zach's hot takes, so take them with a grain of salt. But and they're intentionally extreme. So like fire your agency, right? And find, make, and create a way to build a team of student content creators, right? Oh, and by the way, yes, you have to pay them. You have to find a way to pay them. Now again, this is extreme. If your students, if you're working with an agency that runs your entire website, and you don't have a student that's competent enough to do that, maybe you shouldn't do that. But my point being, when it comes to creating content, especially if you're targeting a more traditional undergraduate population, your students are going to be better, faster, stronger content creators than just about anyone that's 10 years older than them that's working at an agency. There are limits to this, but that is generally true, right? And I have not seen, there are more and more talks about these things. I have yet to see a fantastic example of a school that is just crushing this model and has built teams of in-house student agencies. If any of you have done this at your respective institutions, I would love to talk to you after, because I'm trying to find really, really good examples to highlight here. And it is hard to find. There are examples where we've got 3 people that create content, but there's no paid component. These students aren't being paid for their time, and then their video hits 1 million views, and it's like, come on, we should be incentivizing our students to work hard for this. And I know there are politics and things in place, and we can't pay students that much, yada, yada. Regardless, forget all of that. The schools that find a way to do that, create a way to do that, those are the schools that are going to win, like full stop. Hot take number one. Hot take number two is test content topics on TikTok, okay? So what I mean here is if you're, a lot of the more progressive schools are thinking a lot about SEO right now. And if you don't have an SEO and content strategy right now, like you have to get one in place. Like that is like this year, that should be your number one focus. Now, the problem with SEO and the problem with content creation in general is it compounds over time and it takes a lot of time to see ROI, like true ROI. It really does take a lot of time. So before you go down like a SEO campaign with tons of blog content, video content, premium content resources, etc., what I would recommend doing is test out content ideas or content topics on TikTok for a couple reasons. One, the way that TikTok's algorithm works is it starts by showing people, or one of the ways that it works, in your rough geographic area, like the TikToks. And if they like it, like if it's popular among people close to you, then it expands from there. So it's a really good indicator, especially if you're targeting a specific geo, to understand like, oh, is this topic like relevant to the TikTokers that live around me? And if so, and if it goes viral, that's a strong indication that there's something worth paying attention to here. This content topic is resonating in a particular way. So before you go and you launch this epic SEO and paid social campaigns talking about a particular program or talking about a particular aspect of your student experience, find a way to quickly test it on TikTok, see if it takes off, and use that data to inform your decision. Use fewer words. I should take my own advice here. But in all seriousness, right? Like, it's students, unfortunately or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, like they don't want to read long paragraphs of text. They just don't. Why should they have to? If they can learn something in 10 seconds via video, right? Why do they need to read a 3-paragraph email? This one's a little bit of a hotter take, at least from my perspective. A lot of people on like social, like a lot of the folks that create good higher ed marketing content, like on Twitter and LinkedIn, there's a lot going around right now about like, hey, you really need to build up your owned channels, right? You really need to get people to the properties, the content properties that you own, because you can't control things like Facebook and TikTok and Twitter, et cetera. And while I generally, like, I understand the intent, and I agree that like you have to invest heavily in your own properties, like your website. What I don't agree with is like if you are spending money and time on social, right, and you aren't playing the game that these algorithms are telling you to play, you're really just wasting your time and your team's time. You're creating content, you're spending all this time creating this content, but you're like, you know what? No, I'm still gonna drop like a blog post article on Twitter. Like I'm still gonna link out to a site on Twitter. Anyone that knows anything about Twitter's algorithm understands that Twitter is giving that a lot of thumbs down right now, right? Twitter doesn't want people leaving their site. They want people staying on their site, right? And you have to understand the nuances of these platforms. And like, this isn't even rocket science. Like if you're Twitter, right, and you're trying to increase engagement and increase the number of users that use your platform, are you gonna reward content that somebody posts that links elsewhere higher, or are you gonna reward content that is created natively in the platform higher, right? It's not a hard decision. Like, of course they're gonna, reward the latter. So what I see folks doing in the industry and colleges and universities, the mistakes that I see them making are like they're treating social like social was 5 years ago, right? Like social was kind of this aggregate place where you could drop links. Algorithms were a little bit less complicated than they are now. They're even more sophisticated now, and they're rewarding content that's designed specifically for the platform. So stop fighting the algorithm and create content specifically for the platform, right? Otherwise, and again, I don't like omni-channel approaches because I think that while I do think you should be in multiple places, when people hear omni-channel, they tend to think like, I've got to be everywhere all the time, right? And I don't agree with that. You need to pick a few places where you do need to play, and then you need to play the game how the game was meant to be played, right? If you can't afford the time to do Twitter well, the way that Twitter's supposed to be done, just don't do it. Just don't do it. And let your institutional accounts take care of those things, right? All right, number 5. Intrigue captures attention, and engaging content keeps it, okay? Intrigue captures attention, engaging content keeps it. Meaning, if you do something silly or funny or different, like the likelihood of me stopping my scroll, right, and looking at it is it goes way up, right? That's the way to get my attention. But then if I click over to the landing page or if I click over somewhere else and it's like really ugly or old or boring or difficult to navigate, like you're not going to keep my attention, right? And I think one of the things that's happening is marketing just is shifting dramatically from a place where, well, like marketing used to be thought about as not trickery per se, but like the marketing's goal was to kind of present a sexy ad and hope that you would click it. And then if you clicked it and you went to enrollments, your admissions team's like event page or inquiry page, right? Like you had done your job. Marketing could check that box, right? I got you. I got them off of Facebook and onto your landing page. I don't control your landing page. You got to figure this out, right? That's fundamentally changing, and this isn't just changing in higher ed, it's changing everywhere. Marketing is being held way more accountable than ever before. Marketing attribution is easier than ever before, right? At the same time, it's also more complicated than ever before. But the point being that like marketing has to think past the initial click and onto conversion, right? And so thinking about how are we designing content that's not just intriguing, but that is also engaging, and how do we provide it? If you have an incredible video ad, right, that pulls me in from TikTok or from Instagram, and then every other touch point I have with your school is mediocre or like bland, like no wonder your engagement drops off. No wonder the 100 people that you generated from that social campaign, one of them became an enrolled student. No wonder. Have you looked at the content that brought them in and then all the content that you served them over the past 6 months? Is there a difference in how that content looks and feels, right? All right, 5 hot tips for search. We've kind of said this a few times already, but search is navigation to Gen Z, right? It just is. And if you're stuck in trying to force some new navigation, and if you're in meetings and people are all like arguing over navigation, be kind of a hot taker and stand up in that meeting and just say like, hey, I think the most important thing here is search, and if we're not prioritizing that, nothing else that we're discussing really matters at the end of the day. In order to do this, you have to invest in a proper site search tool. And Google site search, I'm sorry, it just doesn't cut it. It really, really doesn't cut it. I know a couple of people in this space. If you're interested in learning more like about a vendor you could use for this, let me know after. But you can also go to your IT and like say, this has to be the #1 priority for our next website redesign. The next time you redesign your website, whenever that is, if search isn't the primary focus of how that content is aggregated, that's problematic, and you should raise that red flag. In a similar vein, ask your IT team or your web admin, whoever controls your website, ask them for a monthly report of all on-site search queries. They should be able to give this to you, even if you're using Google Site Search. Somebody at your institution has this data, and it's really important that you understand what are people searching for once they get to your website, right? This is a really good way for you to help reduce friction in the student experience. You can kind of click around and say, oh, wow, like this page, when someone searches like nursing programs, it pulls up this landing page from a nursing event from 2 years ago. No, why is that happening, right? And a lot of times people just don't know. You just don't know, you're too busy, right? And so get access to this data and use it to make informed decisions about how to reduce friction in the student experience, #1, and #2, use it to then sort of develop your other content strategies, right? So like if you know that once people get to your website, they're asking these sorts of questions, it can help you inform, all right, what is the kind of content that we need to be creating for prospective students? All right, identify 5 to 7 topics that you want to increase your rank around and focus most of your time here. So one of the things that I see a lot of schools doing is like, again, they're trying to be everything to everybody all the time. And I understand that it's complicated in higher ed, right? Like you represent faculty and programs that are very diverse in nature, and you can't like only give attention to your 2 best programs and or your 2 worst programs and leave everyone else out to dry. I understand that, and that's difficult. I sympathize with you, but still, what you can do and what your enrollment management teams and marketing teams should be doing is saying, okay, what are just 5 topics where at the end of this year or at the end of the next couple years, we really want to see that we move the needle. We went from the 3rd page of Google for evening nursing programs to 4th place on the 1st page of Google in that period of time. That is a win. That is something to be proud of, right? That's huge for you all. So find 5 to 7 topics and focus most of your energy and time there. Number 4, optimize your visual social content for rankability and discoverability. So that's kind of wordy, but point being, do your hashtag and trends research first. This really only applies Instagram and TikTok. So if you're doing anything on Instagram and TikTok at all, and you're trying to get a better sense of where your content should be, what you should be talking about, how often you should be posting, etc., make sure that you go look up these hashtags and trends first. So go to TikTok, understand trending content. Go to Instagram, look for a specific hashtag, and if there's no activity around it, don't create content around that topic, right? If there are 10 people talking about, nursing programs, well, you know what? Hey, at least for the foreseeable future, we're not creating Instagram content about nursing programs when there's 1,000 people talking about business programs, right? So use good judgment here, but optimize any of your visual social content for rankability and discoverability. And then last but certainly not least, collect prospective student Chrome journey data if you can. What is Chrome journey data? I'm glad you asked, okay? So Chrome journey data, it's relatively new, and you would really, in order to make this work, you'd have to run some sort of simulation with prospective students, right? This isn't going to work with you're not going to be able to say, hey, just send me your search history or anything like that, right? But Chrome journey data, what it is it's Google's way of grouping together various pathways that you took after you queued up a particular keyword, right? So this is mine from a few days ago. Search data on TikTok, right? So I look for search data on TikTok. I hit TikTok, then I went to Discover, then I went to TikTok Make Your Day, right? So I started here, then I ended here, and these are other searches from folks who took similar journeys to me, right? Higher Ed Marketing Podcast, to bring this a little bit more home, right? So I Googled Higher Ed Marketing Podcast, right? And really what we're trying to do here is we're trying to understand what students click on along their journey to your content, right? So what you can do with this data is understand that, okay, when people Google Higher Ed Marketing Podcasts, they typically click these 2 or 3 sites before they end up on our site, right? What are those sites? Let's say, for example, one of those was a niche profile. Some of you guys probably have content profiles on niche, right? If you see that, if you're wondering whether or not you should go forward and buy a niche profile or not, run one of these tests, right? Have students run these tests. And if people are clicking on niche's content before they end up on your content, that's probably a good indicator that it's worth the investment, right? Because they're looking at that before they find their way to you. What's also kind of cool is Chrome journey data will show you what are the searches that you queried before and after, right? So I started with Higher Ed Marketing Podcasts, right? I read a little bit about the Enrollify podcast, but then I was like, what is Enrollify? So then I Google, what is Enrollify? And these are the different links I clicked along the way. All right, that was a lot of information, and I really appreciate y'all's time. Who's ready to play a game? Come on, who's ready to play a game? All right, there we go. All right. So we are going to play 3 quick games, okay? And I've got a Bluetooth speaker, so if anyone has a song recommendation to make it more interesting, I'll cue it up. So the 3 quick games that we're gonna be playing. The first is a creative comparison campaign. So we spent a lot of time talking about a game. We spent a lot of time talking about the importance of creative, how Gen Z likes aesthetically pleasing things. So we're going to go to Meta's ad library or moat.com, and I'll explain what that means in a second. And we're going to do some research. So if you don't have a laptop or phone open, please open a laptop or phone. Then we're going to play a game on getting to a destination on your colleague's website using only site search, right? So you're going to team up with somebody that you ideally don't know, and we're going to queue that game up. And then last but certainly not least, we're going to find a program or major via non-branded search. So game number 1. All right. Has anyone used Facebook's ad library before, now called Meta's ad library before? Show of hands real fast. A few of you. Okay. So if you didn't know, I'm about to blow your mind. You can look up any competitor or your own ads that are running on Facebook or Instagram at any given time, right? You can see what people are, what their ad campaigns actually look like, right? So if you just Google Meta ad library, right? you can do it that way. If you can't find your school or a competitor's school, and or if you would just rather look at people's Google display content instead, go to moat.com, okay? So either Google Facebook Ads Library, you could also go to TikTok's ad library if you'd like, or moat.com, right? And then what I want you to do, I'm gonna give you like a few minutes here. What I want you to do is I want you to just look up your competitors and or your own institution's ads, and I want you to look at what kind of ads that they're running. Like, and how do those ads compare to the ads that your school is running? What do they look like? How many words are on the ads? Are there video ads? Are they super wordy ads with one CTA button? Like, take notes on pieces of paper. If no one has paper, I've got some paper and pens that I can pass out. But I want you to just like do an analysis, a compare and contrast between their ads and your school's ads. If you can't find a competitor's ads, that's totally fine. Look up a popular brand that you like, right? And I want you to compare their ads with your institution's ads. If anyone is having trouble accessing any of these websites, let me know. But you can just Google Facebook Ads Library, TikTok Ads Library, or moat.com. And again, moat.com is going to show you any Google display ad that a particular company or brand is running. So we'll start here. Does anyone have a song request? Oh, nervous bunch. All right, so try to find 3 to 5 things that are interesting, that are different, okay, between your competitors' ads and your ads. One doesn't have to be better. It's not about right or wrong or better or worse. It's just different. This is a little sleepy, sorry. Once somebody has an interesting insight, raise your hand. All right, for the sake of time, we're going to keep moving. At the end, if we have time, if someone wants to share their learning or their insight on what they found, let me know. As you're doing this, okay, if you like the path you're headed down, keep going down that path. Keep doing research. If you didn't find anything that was that interesting or you couldn't find any ads that your school was running, totally fine. We're going to move on to game number 2, okay? This is site search exploration. So for the sake of time, just find the person next to you, even if you do know them. This is kind of cheating, but whatever. And I want you to go to your institution's website or have them, especially if they are not from your school, this is even better. And I want you to ask them to find a particular major or program using only your site search tool, okay? So use your search bar on your website and try to find your business major or your fine arts graduate program, whatever it might be. And I want you to track how long it takes you to find it. Pick any major, any program. Business, fine arts, nursing. Actually. Yeah, I'm going to take a couple things out real fast for time.
They were using my computer.
What'd you say?
I didn't know they were using my computer.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just going to do this real fast. Yeah. All right, and the final game, again, if you're liking what you're doing, keep doing what you're doing. But if you're bored and you haven't found it, here's your final game. I want you to find a program or a major at your school, okay? Start on Google. You got to find a program or a major at your school, but you can't use your school's name at all, right? No acronyms, nothing, right? But find a major, any program, and Google your way until you find that specific program page, okay? And count how long, like, time yourself if you can. I can't get it back to full screen because it's showing your. Yeah, you see? I know.
Is it that?
Oh, maybe undo that one.
This one?
Yeah, try that. There you go. Well, yeah, that's fine.
Is it?
There we go. Perfect. Was anyone able to find it in under, how long did it take you to find it? Roughly. Seconds? Oh, I should have said to use an incognito window. Sorry, use an incognito window. Thank you for being honest. Really? Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, you end up being really surprised. You learn a lot when you start doing stuff like this. All right. So for the sake of time, I'm so sorry. I am too verbose, but we're going to have to move on. Hopefully you learned a little bit there. And if you didn't, again, come find me later and I'll give you a gift card. But the goal is that you learned a little bit of either how your program ranks or doesn't rank. You understand a little bit more about how your site search tool actually works or doesn't work. And or you now know like where to go to spy on your competitors, right? To see what ad campaigns that they're running. All right. This next session is really on how to become a kick-ass email marketer. And again, for the sake of time, I'm going to go a little bit quickly here. This session has a lot of data, but it'll be fun. It'll be interesting. So how many of you know who this character is? Oh, only a few of you? Oh, come on. Okay, some of you. So Don Draper, right? If anyone's ever watched Mad Men, he's like the protagonist from Mad Men. And he's a fictional character, obviously, but he's one of the best creative and copywriter characters of our time, right? He's just a wizard with words, and he understands how to pair words with creative really, really well. So it's time for another game. I want you to open up your phones, your laptops, go to your personal email. Your personal email, not your work email, right? And I want you to just give it a good quick like scroll, open up a couple emails. And if your inbox, if your personal inbox looks anything like mine, you might see emails that look a little bit like this, right? Like my wife really likes to shop at West Elm and I get all of their ads. As I mentioned earlier, I'm an expert Airbnb finder, so I get their emails all the time, all their promotional materials, right? Allbirds, big fan of Allbirds. The shoe company, get their emails a lot, right? I also love Sweetgreen, great custom, salads like Chipotle, but healthier-ish, right? So these are the emails that, probably if you're looking at brand emails from your personal emails, they probably look something like this, right? They're typically large images, a little bit more dynamic and whatnot. Sweetgreen is trying to sell me a $10 salad, okay? Allbirds, they're trying to sell me a $100 pair of shoes. Most business schools, right, are trying to sell me a $50,000 MBA. And these are what their communications look like, right? Like look at like the stark contrast in style. This is my personal favorite, right? In terms of communications from a $50,000 product versus a $10 product. Worth thinking about, right? So what we need to remember through all of this is that we are in the market for eyeball time, right? We are competing with the entire inbox. You are competing with the entire inbox of your prospective students. You're not just competing with your competitors, right? You're competing for their attention. So last fall, I did an experiment, right? And what I did is, and this is actually a grad-focused section here, but the same, even if you don't oversee grad programs at all, should still be interesting. I submitted RFI programs at 100 different graduate programs, okay? 100 different programs. My name was Zach Holmes, a nod to Sherlock. And I was curious about how schools communicated with me, right? So here's a little bit about the experiment. It ran from August 1st. Inquiry forms were submitted from August 1st to September 1st of 2021, okay? So a month period of time. The data collected for this experiment spanned a time frame of August 2021 to January of 2022, okay? As I mentioned, 100 graduate programs. Worth noting, I took no further action on any of these emails, right? So I wasn't opening and clicking and engaging or anything like that, right? So if you have a smart CRM like Element who can tell you which of your prospects are like most engaged, I wasn't doing any of that. So for all these schools, no, like the most sophisticated ones probably knew that I wasn't that engaged and maybe they unenrolled me from certain communications. Nevertheless, took no further action. I tracked these communications for about 6 months and I analyzed our findings. In terms of graduate program type, just so you all know, about 60% of these were business programs, some form of business program. 17% were education programs, just over 10% health sciences, and just under 10% were like general grad program information forms, right? So here's what happened. Emails received. I received 2,607 emails during this period of time. 18% of schools sent me more than 20 emails. 56% sent me 6 or more emails. 33% sent me just 3 emails. 22% sent me just 1 email, right? So I inquired, they sent me a thank you trigger. That was it. 22% of these schools, these programs. And 8% sent me 0 emails. Now I know what you're saying, Zach, did you mistype your email address? Like, did you know? No, we were very diligent in the setup of this experiment, right? But 8% of these graduate programs did not send me a single email. 12 was the average number of emails that were sent by a school or program, right? So my hope with some of this data is it's just like a nice benchmark for you. So 12 was the average number of emails a school or program were sending. 46 was the average number of characters in the subject line of each email. 10 days was the average number of days between emails from the same school, right? 217, average number of words in each email. So what, Zach? So what? Like, why does this matter, right? There's a lot of data, right? Well, it matters because HubSpot and Boomerang teamed up and they did this really deep analysis on 41 million sales nurturing sequences. So these are like sequences of interested subscriber, interested guest, not customer yet. But the goal of these emails are to convert people to customers, right? Across 15 different industries. So it's a pretty robust survey. So here's how GEM, Graduate Enrollment Management, kind of stacks up against what this survey unveiled. So this survey, again, looking at over 40 million different sequences, the best performing sales nurturing sequences had between 50 and 125 words, right? We had 212 in these emails. Average number of characters in an email subject line, 19. Right? We had 46, right? So we're sending emails with 2 to 3 times the number of words that is recommended in terms of top performing sales nurturing sequences from this survey, 2 times the number of subject line characters, and 2 times, and this is really significant, the number of days between emails, right? So on average, it's taking us, 10 days, right? Best performing sequences, the average number is 4 to 5. Let's talk about email subject lines. I love email subject lines. Writing email subject lines and writing like ad copy are like my favorite things to do, right? 10% of emails contained apply now in the subject line. Not too surprising. In fact, you'd think that the number would be higher. 9.8% of emails contained personalization in the subject line. So like hey, Zach, or, hey, Zach, I hear you're interested in business programs, right? 0.2% of emails contained ROI or a related term in the subject line, right? 0 emails contained story or testimonial in the subject line. Again, this is all, remember, in the subject line specifically, but remember, if the subject line doesn't pull at you, you're not going to open the actual email communication. 42% of emails contained 40 or more characters in the subject line, and 7% of emails contained an event or join us or some related term in the subject line. Those were all subject lines. Now talking about the body content of the email, okay? 98% of emails contained apply now in the body copy. 37% of emails contained an event invitation of some sort. Come to our grad program open house, come to our information session, yada, yada. 3.2% of emails contained a student story or a link to a student story. 25% of emails contained renowned faculty, that exact phrase, in the body copy of the email. One of my personal favorites. 11% of emails contained affordable in the body copy, and 2% of emails contained info on ROI or outcomes in the body copy. 2%. A few more. 2.7% of emails offer the opportunity to connect with a student. 0.5% of emails offer the opportunity to connect with admissions via text message. And 8.7% of emails offered an application fee waiver. Just under 4% of emails contained experiential learning as a UVP. In fact, I'm surprised that wasn't a lot higher. 1% of emails contained small classes as a UVP. And 27% of emails contained any reference to faculty or professors as part of the email. Again, Zach, so what, right? Well, in May of 2021, RNL surveyed 1,500 prospective graduate students who plan to enroll within the next year, okay? And they published their findings. And here's what was interesting about their report and how that compares to this secret shopper experiment. 47% of prospects expect information on ROI of the program in communication flows, according to RNL's report. 0.2% of us are sending that, right? 89% of prospects expect invitations to recruitment events, information sessions, or open houses on their journey to enroll in a graduate program. Only 7% of those invitations are happening, at least according to this experiment, right? 22% of prospects expect student stories. 0% of these emails are including that. And again, at the graduate level, it's always like, oh, well, do they really care about graduate student stories? You've probably been in conversations about this. Well, according to this RNL report, not that 22% is massive, but 22% of them do expect that, and 0% of these emails include these stories. So anyways, there's major discrepancies between what prospective graduate students say that they want and what we're giving them, right, as enrollment managers. Some other random findings, and I'll go through these quickly here. So 55% of schools sent me information totally unrelated to my request. I got invited to football games. I got invited to alumni events, right? Just total, really, really, really piss poor email management. 2% of emails contained an ellipses in the subject line. And based off of lots of data out there, ellipses in subject lines are one of the best ways to increase email open rates. The suspense gets a lot of people. 48 hours, the average time it took to receive the first follow-up email. 48 hours, right? I can order something and get a couch from Amazon in that amount of time, right? Taking that long to follow up with individual, to get a follow-up from folks. 25% of emails were from an individual, but it had a generic reply all address, right? So in the spirit of like authenticity and transparency and all that fun stuff, personalization, yada, yada, like don't pretend to be Jessica and then have like a grad programs at insert university here, right? It's just silly. It's just silly. Like if you can't afford to have for lots of reasons, if you can't actually put Jessica's email there and blah blah blah, fine. It should be from the team, right? Or it should be from the admissions unit or what have you. But don't think that you're like faking anyone out here. Don't think that you're outsmarting your consumer. So what I want to do now quickly is walk through the great, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So of all these emails that I got over this period of time, like who was killing it and who really wasn't. Hopefully none of you guys are in this. Hopefully none of your schools are here. But and if you are, just stay quiet, okay? I'm not going to call you out. So Fitchburg State University, this is an example of someone doing it really great. They sent me 18 emails over a 4-month period of time. They had 4 unique email senders. And this is actually really important in the data that we have too. Like getting different emails from multiple people on your team is actually really helpful, right? Like you should still have one centralized person that can answer all your questions, but getting like a variety of personalities that I get to meet and associate with your brand, big win. And they had 8 different unique offers throughout their email drip sequence. So meaning they weren't just inviting me to apply or they weren't just inviting me to come to an event. They had 8 unique, really dynamic offers in their communication sequence. UT Tyler, 13 emails over a 3-month period of time. They were one of the only schools that used emojis in subject lines. So regardless of how you feel about emojis in subject lines, personally, I don't know. But right, they're one of the few that are doing it. So if you're looking for, again, a way to stand out, a way to be a little bit different, maybe test that out. They also had 6 unique offers throughout their email drip sequence. They also had a diverse set of subject lines, which was great. The good, right? Oregon State. What I love about this sequence, right, is they right at the bottom here, in the big highlighted red box, they tell you like where you're at in their sequence, right? So like week 4, final thoughts. You are here, right? They helped me, and what was cool about this, again, I wasn't looking at these in real time. But if I had stumbled upon this email but missed the other 2, or maybe my spam folder caught one, or like it shows me that they've sent me 3 other emails before. So if I am interested in like this content, I now know, oh, I can go back and like find additional content, right? So again, I don't know how this tactic performed, and I guess I should have said that at the offset. I obviously have no data on how any of this is actually performing, right? So for all I know, all of my tips you should avoid and do something entirely different. But this is just kind of pulling in what we found in our inboxes. What I don't like about this email is their poor formatting. It's a really, really long email, right? Emporia State, personalized email. They had a real person reply, which I really liked. It was very conversational, so this guy Matthew reached out. But if you read this email, it says, I was told you were interested in the program, and I was wondering if there were any questions I could answer for you. It puts the onus on me to have to like make the first move, right? And it's like, no, I'm a 17, or maybe grad program, I'm a 23-year-old or whatever. Like, it's still a lot to ask me to take that first step, right? What he should have done is been a little bit more proactive. Here are like some of the most common questions people do have. Like, here are links to blog articles. Would be happy to hop on a call, yada, yada. And it also arrived 72 hours after submitting the form. Too late. Georgetown's a well-known institution, right? This is their email. Like, they've got an array of communication formats offered, which I like. They say you can text us, you can call us, right? You can take us off, we can take you off our list. But it's a terribly designed and formatted email. It looks really, really, really ugly, and it's not personalized, right? University of Georgia. What I like is there are lots of conversion pathways. So in this email, lots of different links to things, right? The content aligns with the prospect's concerns and challenges. Like, it's actually a very well-written email if you're willing to read it. But it's long, it's text-heavy, and there are just too many options. Like, I don't know which one to click, right? It's too overwhelming. All right, the bad. Longwood. Were you from Longwood? You don't have to answer that. So the linked program page was the same page that I filled out the RMI form on, excuse me. So meaning I went in, I filled out a form, right, on a landing page, and then the link that I got in this confirmation directed me exactly back to that same page, right? So I clearly asked for more information because the page that you had didn't give me enough, right? So I want something a little bit more detailed. The bad, George Mason University, it's poorly written content. This is my alma mater, so I can pick on them. Thank you for your recent inquiry to George Mason University. I understand that you are conducting research regarding your educational future via online because your time is valuable, right? I mean, it's just a very poorly written, like wrong opening sentence, right? There are no CTAs in the entire email. There's nothing to do. There's no calendar link. Like, what is the purpose of this email, right? Another example, right? This is just easy to pick on here. It's a 5-paragraph essay. It's not an email. It's poorly written, right? The reply email is a general email address, even though it's apparently from the dean. Now this is the fun part. So the ugly, right? So I got this email as like the trigger email. This is clearly an internal communication that was meant from their team, but something must be awry because I was getting the notification that I had just submitted this email address, right? Like that was my thank you information. Dear Zach, your inquiry for admissions at Madonna University has been received. You will be contacted soon by a member of our admissions team. Again, zero value added to it. Like why even bother, right? If you're not gonna add value, don't interrupt my inbox. Zach, thank you for your inquiry and your interest in the graduate school of the University of Louisiana at Lafayette. Here are 3 different things that you should do. 3 different people that you should contact. Again, it's overwhelming. It's confusing. I'm a prospect. Why do I need to contact 3 different offices, when I just want a basic question answered? RIT, this was a great approach. Example of a great approach, but poor execution. So tell us a little bit more about yourself, right? So they can personalize my experience. And this was like a general information form. That was great. I clicked on that though, and then they made me, like, in order to get my question answered, I have to fill out this really, really long form. Like, I had a basic question about a program. You sent me an email. Why do I now need to tell you way more information about myself and where I'm at before you can accurately answer the question? And then this is just great. I will be working from home, answering emails and phone calls. Like, thank you, Debbie, right? Appreciate that. So, anyways, point being, right? Hopefully you guys are more in this room, more at the ladder. Again, you have a really powerful tool that helps you guys make and design really great, beautiful, dynamic emails. Hopefully, no one here falls into this category. But again, the point being, like, this is true in 2022 of the graduate school student search experience. These are the kind of communications folks are receiving. Final kind of data points here. 35% of schools failed to send me additional program information at all, okay? 8% of schools failed to send me any email after acquiring. And 45% of RMI thank you pages brought me to a dead end, meaning it was like, thank you, Zach, for inquiring about this program. And then that was it. There was no invitation to do anything else. There was no option to book some time with an admissions counselor or a program coordinator, et cetera. It brought me to a dead end. So in light of this, what are some tips on how to become a better email marketer? Number 1, know your numbers. There's a really great report, actually, that especially if you work at the graduate level in any way, shape, or form, go and download this report. It's got really interesting enrollment marketing benchmarks, specifically on like comm flows that relate to graduate student recruitment. So know your numbers. If you have a great open rate, right, your subject line and preview text are on point. So if you're looking at your open rates and you're like, dang, like that's good. Like if you look at that benchmark report and you say, wow, like our open rates are like 10% above what is standard, that's a good open rate. Great. That means what you're doing with subject lines and preview text, keep doing them. Like they're working. If you have a great click-through rate, that means your email copy and design is working. Like if people are going and they're taking action on your offer, that's great, right? Like don't mess with that if you have a great click-through rate. Number 3, if you have a great what I call offer engagement rate, you could also call this a conversion rate, on the email offer. So if it's an invitation to come to an event, if it's an invitation to speak with a professor, whatever it might be, if that conversion rate is good, that means that your offer is relevant to where that prospective student is at in their journey to college, right? So it's just kind of a helpful framework. Tip number 2, identify what's in the box, right? So we talk all the time about like, think outside the box, right? Like, if you want to really like get better at something, you just be creative, right? Like you hear folks, probably you guys tell your team this all the time, right? What we don't talk enough about is what's in the box, right? So here's what I like to do. It's just like a Zach pro tip. When it comes to crafting subject lines and preview text, here's what I do. I write out 2 complete pairs of subject line and preview text, okay? So two options, option A and option B, right? Then I draw a circle around these ideas, right? And I say, or like a box, right? A rectangle. And I say, all right, these initial ideas, this is what's inside the box, right? And that now I've got my creative juices running, and I can think of something else. Like now I have to think about something outside the box. Now, of course, like if you can't come up with anything outside the box, you can revisit the ideas in the box. It's just a helpful, very, very, very simple, basic creative exercise that I'd recommend that you all walk through. All right, tip number 3, thank you trigger emails. They really, 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 really matter. Okay, what are thank you trigger emails? It's a little email that you get after you've submitted a form, letting you know that we've received your information, right? And we'll be following up in X period of time. So these emails typically generate 80 to 90% open rates. This is the best open rate, unless you're like God, that you're ever going to see on your emails, right? And therefore, it's a really cool opportunity to get creative, to do something different, right? So here's what my inbox looked like. I took a screenshot, right, of all the thank you triggers. Thank you for your interest in our program. Thank you for your information has been submitted. Thank you for your interest. Thank you for considering the WP Carey School, right? It's a lot of the same. Now again, like most people aren't, inquiring at 100 grad programs like all within a very short period of time, and therefore their inboxes don't look like this. But what you should be able to see here is, hey, the formula is pretty like cut and dry. Like no one's taking creative risks with respect to their subject line and preview text for their thank you trigger communications. And here's what these emails look like. What you'll notice here is it's all pretty much the same, right? Like several paragraphs of information, lots of text, very little design, right? And then you've got Debbie who's working from home and making phone calls, right? And so point being, like there's like massive opportunity here to get really creative and just to stand out in your prospect's inbox by simply taking a look at thank you trigger communications and reviving them. I did want to call out one school that I thought they're just like slaying this game. Again, I don't have access to their data, but from my perspective, they're crushing. And that's the Carlson full-time MBA. I think it's at University of Minnesota. So their thank you trigger communication to me was your full-time MBA brochure. So they proactively, right? I requested more information about their MBA program. They proactively, in the trigger, sent me this brochure. This is what their email looked like. You open the email, you get what you pay for and then some, right? Cashback, real-world experience, real-life LinkedIn, career cash, right? It's worth it. This email, their trigger communication email, is doing an incredible job at handling all the objections that a prospective student might have about graduate school right up front, right? Really, really, really great example. Their CTA is, it's worth it. Like, I mean, it's impressive. No one else is doing stuff like this. So just go clone this and do this in your context, tweak it a little bit. You're welcome. Email tip number 4 is to be data-driven, but not data-controlled. What this means, to me anyways, is that great email marketing is part art and part science. You can go, you've probably had your bosses say, you've probably said to your teams, whatever it might be, go look up others, like how, what's a good open rate? What's a good click rate? Like, are our emails performing as they should? And the science behind email marketing is incredibly important, but the art is really important as well. And I think, right, especially in the graduate student recruitment communication space, as we've seen, but also probably in the undergraduate student recruitment space, right, there's a dearth of great email art. And we talked a long time earlier today about how important aesthetic is to Gen Z. So consult the data, but don't let it stifle your creativity, right? Just because a blue CTA performed 1.5% better than your orange CTA does not mean that you have to use blue CTAs for the rest of your life, right? And it's really, really important that we understand this and we get this. Being different wins, right? That's ultimately what, if you are working in marketing in any sort of capacity, if you're working in recruitment in any sort of capacity, at the end of the day, you've got to be different. You've got to offer something that's unique and different to your prospective students, right? So that they pick you over their competitors. It's pretty much that simple. So being different wins, and also that hard at the same time, right? All right. We're going to come back to this game because I've got one more session to get through, and I know that I'm running out of time, so I got to go quickly. Okay. This is homework for y'all, right? I want you, in light of what we just shared, I want you to pick an email and rewrite just one email in your comm flow, right? Just one email in light of what you've just learned. do a test, do an A/B test, see how it performs against an email that's existing. All right, last session, and we're going to power through this. Thank you all for your patience. And this is the shortest session, so it works out perfectly. How to increase yield rates with the power of video. So Brene Brown. If you don't know Brene Brown, you probably are living under a rock. She's kind of been everywhere over the last few years, right? Great author, researcher. She studies shame. She studies vulnerability. She studies leadership, right? Really, really great. She's got a TED Talk that went viral several years ago, right? This idea, this notion that Gen Z craves and expects authenticity is not new. And the number of times that you get up and you hear people like me talk about Gen Z, you have to be authentic. You have to be it's so annoying at this juncture, right? So I almost didn't even want to include this, but like I almost didn't even want to use the word authenticity because it's become such a trigger kind of like buzzword now. But it's true. Like, you know, Gen Z craves this more than ever before. Here are some quick buzz stats for y'all, right? I'm just going to call out 2 of them right now. 95% of Gen Zs have taken action towards a cause that they believe in. You probably heard that one before. 78% of Gen Zs spend their time on social media consuming video content. Stories, Reels, TikToks, and YouTube. And 65% of Gen Zs are skeptical of institutions, institutional brands, religion, higher education, etc. None of that should be shocking to y'all. What might be a little bit more shocking is 84% of Gen Z has purchased products in direct response to social media content, which is 3 times as many as Gen Xers, right? So you're seeing this generation that's just way more comfortable and okay with purchasing stuff that they see online. This is kind of a couple other interesting data points here. So this was a survey that was done in February, and what they were looking at is like, where does Gen Z get their news, right? 50% of them are getting their news daily from social media versus just 9% on network news and 8% on cable news. So again, they're consuming, their life does really revolve around social content. Another sort of interesting data point is this was a survey that was done by YPulse, and what they were trying to understand is like, at what threshold does Gen Z trust creators online or like trust influencers? And what's shocking is what this data shows is that it actually doesn't matter how many followers someone has for Gen Z to trust them, which is, you know, a little scary here, right? But the point being that really the big takeaway here, guys, is that Gen Z trusts people over brands more than ever before, right? Like that's kind of the big takeaway. All right, raise your hand if you have TikTok downloaded on your phone. All right, so I'm guessing 20-ish, 15 to 20%, right? So you don't have to do this now. Well, actually, you do have to do this one now. Raise your hand if you have opened TikTok in the last 24 hours. All right, 10, 12% roughly. All right, TikTok, in case you've never looked at it, in case you've never downloaded it, this is what it looks like, right? It's a lot of videos of people's faces doing things, teaching you how to do a particular task, showing you some cool, beautiful, like new trick, doing something ridiculous like setting your hair on fire, right? Really, really trendy, grabby, like interesting content, right? It's a lot of people's faces. It's a lot of like, hey, let me show you how to do this thing. Here's how I do my makeup. Here's how I change a car tire, etc. Right? Now, I want to contrast that with Facebook, right? And just for a second, right? We just looked at this, and then we looked at this, right? And one is not better than the other, right? What it is it's just different, right? The format, the content, the kind of communication is wildly different. Lots of text, no text, right? So when we look at your communications, right? Which format of content do your communications look more like, right? Do they look more like this, right? Or do they look a little bit more like that? And if you're like most institutions, they look a little bit more like this, right? And why that's problematic, right, is if, as Brene Brown says, we should be after authentic relationships. People need to be vulnerable, especially with Gen Z, more so than ever before. Trust is built through shared human experience, and video is the closest digital expression that we have to in real life human experience, right? So if the goal, especially when it comes to yield campaigns, right, because yield campaigns, people are very interested in you at this juncture, right? Like they've applied, they've been accepted, now they're just probably deciding between you and 1 or 2 other people maybe, right? So this is the opportunity to close the gap, folks. This is the opportunity to build that trust. This is the opportunity to be vulnerable. There's some really good examples And I didn't know if we had friends here from Co-Video. So like there are a great number of companies out there. Goodkind is one of them, and they're trying to tackle this very problem. They're trying to bring video into communication flows, right? And so if you're interested in learning more about like how this works, again, you can check it out via the slide deck later. But really what I'm trying to get at here, and the purpose of this section really is to talk about sort of the stark contrast between how communications were, how that aligned with social, and how communications need to be now in light of how social has changed, right? If the content that people are consuming is in fun, engaging, inspirational video content, and if 80% of Gen Z is that's how they're using social media, and if all of a sudden we're serving them up a 3 or 4 paragraph email and expecting them to pay attention to it and or take it seriously, like we're just kidding ourselves. So like what I'm not saying is like, okay, your school needs to like become TikTok, right? Like, and I understand people don't have time and resources and energy, yeah. And all that is true. Like, and I'm not trying to discount any of that. All I'm here to do is present the facts, and the facts are that the way that people are learning, the way that people are consuming content looks a lot more like this than it does those email communications I showed you before. Here's some stats we can look at later just on how this works. So at the end of the day, this is, again, another homework assignment since I'm out of time here, but what I'd love for you to do, and this would bring me great joy if anyone would email me after and show me this, is take a little bit of time to pull up a yield campaign and find just one email from that campaign, right? And try to turn it into a simple video, right? It's embarrassing, it's a little awkward, I get that, right? But if you're in a pinch and if somebody has given you an objective to increase yield, it's at least worth a shot, right? It's at least worth a shot. And again, this is a generation that this is where they're consuming information, this is how they're learning, this is how they're engaging. And if your college or your university are trying to court them and trying to say, hey, we are an institution of higher education, quite frankly, your videos should be 10 times better than TikTok's, right? Like if they're learning through this vehicle and you are an institution of higher education, your content should live up to that. And again, I know resources are strapped and I know that it's hard, but it's worth a shot. I apologize that we didn't have as much time to workshop some of these things, but thank you all for your time. Really appreciate it. It's been an honor.